Hello and welcome to Trends for Natural Stone in North America. My name is Vince Marazita, and I'd like to start by thanking the ANIAT, and in particular Francelina Pinto, for having invited me to participate as a speaker in today's program. I love talking about natural stone, and I look forward to sharing some of my thoughts with you. Now, when Francelina asked me to speak, she asked me to cover the North American market. As we all know, the worldwide stone industry is truly worldwide and has been for centuries. But I'll try to attempt and give you a picture of what I see as the North American, two of the largest countries in the world, basically, and talk a little bit about those markets and opportunities that are waiting for people there. Again, my name is Vince Marazita. I'm the owner of Stone Trends International. I'm located in California. I was born in Michigan, but moved to California when I started my stone business. I graduated from Harvard, got my architecture experience over at the University of Genoa, where I taught for about 6 years as well. At that point, I was hired by the Italian government to help promote the Italian stone industry and I did that for about 13 years until I hung out my own shingle in 1998. Now, since 1998, I've been doing stone consulting, so project management from the stone point of view for both the stone and the stone fabrication selection. I am also known for my education programs for architects and design professionals, and I also do stone statistics and market research. Since COVID hit, my business has swayed more heavily towards project management and therefore have gotten much more involved in what I initially started out with was watching after stone supply for big architectural projects. Three of my current customers are the American Museum of Natural History in New York. We're doing a new wing on the museum there. New York Institute of Technology has hired me to do a stone facade for one of their buildings on campus. And also a large client is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints out of Salt Lake City, Utah, and we'll see some of the projects we're working on. I do a quarterly Chronicles in Stone. This was not affected by COVID, so I still write and publish there. But you'll see conferences at various trade shows, as well as I'm hired by associations to give architectural programs throughout the year as well. So I hope that picks up after COVID, but we'll see. So on to our topics. So Francelina asked me to give a short report on market developments about the appreciation of natural stone or not in the United States and in Canada and Mexico. Then we'll talk a little bit about design sustainability, use of natural stone in this market, and examples of work. And in particular, I chose to highlight some Portuguese programs that are going on and projects that are going on in the US market. Then we'll finish up with what I see as the potential for the Portuguese in the natural stone market. These pictures are very dear to me because I took them of the beautiful stone pavement in Lisbon by the explorer statue, and I think it's a theme of this presentation will be that worldwide effect that Portugal and the Portuguese stone industry has. Since I visited Portugal the first time back in 2012, I've really been amazed. And even before that, as a history student, I think Portugal is just one of the most interesting countries really in the world for the size and the scope and the influence Portugal has had throughout history. Now, if you actually look at the size of Portugal, and me being from California, being from Los Angeles, I like to compare maps because it gives you an idea of scale, which most architects like to have an idea of scale. And really, Portugal would probably fit in the Southern California territory. Portugal is 92,000 square kilometers. The LA metro area is 87,000 square kilometers. Portugal has a total of 10.6 million people. LA has 18 million people. So we have a lot of things in common, but one thing we don't have in common really is the amount of scope that over hundreds of years that Portugal has had on the world culture and economy. And speaking of architecture in particular, I think it's just fascinating that such a small country has two living Pritzker Prize winners, which is just fascinating. So even from an architectural point of view, let alone natural materials, I think Portugal is really up there on my favorites list of places that understand stone, design with stone, and have what I call stone dust in their veins. So as I said, I like to look at this. This is a map of the trade routes from the 16th century, and it's just amazing how such a small country, and you add that to Spain, basically developed the trade routes throughout the world. And if you look at some of these trade routes, we're still very major trade routes for the largest suppliers of natural stone. I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but I'm circling Brazil right now, one of the largest North America suppliers to North America. Europe, China, of course, but look at in the 16th century, the influence that the Iberian Peninsula had on world history. And this is just a corny picture of us pointing to the US as a market that we're going to be talking about today. So trends. Just a few buildings that we'll be talking about, buildings that are just have touched my personal experience. One in the upper left, of course, I didn't work on, but have been watching it since its inception. We'll talk about that even towards the end of this program. The other two that you'll see are religious structures that I'm currently working on. Another university program of friends who have done an amazing amount of work in a university there. But these all point to different archetypes that I think the stone industry is particularly situated to develop the market within those archetypes as well. So as we know, anything from banks to universities to institutionals, courthouses, performing arts centers in extremely important centers of a city. Those are all archetypes that I think that we should all wrap our heads around and keep an eye on as we develop our marketing strategies for a market. But these markets in particular are very interesting as well, just because they represent stones in all the different categories that come out of Portugal. So here are two examples of marble buildings, an example of a limestone and granite, all coming out of Portugal from the natural material to the fabricators themselves. These are some programs that I'm working on currently that we're in the midst of programs for the Church of Jesus Christ. Again, we're developing architecture that is kind of a timeless architecture. And the vernacular of the natural materials that are chosen are often materials that would have been the most prestigious materials at the time. The ratio of fenestration, doors to facade is very interesting because it is almost as if it were of another time as well. Just like we look at this what I call new, almost patchwork use of the various marbles. This building alone, I think, is fascinating because you can find so many different marbles from the central Portuguese area, which I think, again, this is a flagship for a very important market segment, which is university construction. Now, university construction has slowed a little bit during COVID, but that said, most people predict that will be an area of growth in the near future because universities have become such a large business in the United States and North America. Again, this is another one out of Orem. What I like to show is that the Portuguese manufacturers are not sticking simply to the area of New York any longer. This particular one is in Utah, just in the foothills of the mountains of Utah near Salt Lake City. This is another project in Richmond. Again, Richmond is on the Atlantic seaboard, of course, too. A Jeffersonian type of monument. made all in Portuguese limestone. Again, this is amazing to me because these are a salute to the past in the sense that we could have made these as structural columns. However, given the architectural education and the engineering education we have now, we know that we need to have steel in the middle of those columns as well. But at any rate, this is a major project on the eastern seaboard, all in Molhanos limestone from Portugal. And that's what I like to go back to, my experiences with my first limestone quarry in Portugal. We did bring a group of about 50 architects to the program. We walked throughout all the quarries, went to fabrication plants. It was at that time that I started falling in love with Portugal and its potential for supplying the international market. I think one of the things that we all need to talk about as we're talking about the potential for the future of stone in architecture is really this. We need to talk about how we are adding value to our buildings by the use of stone, by the choice of stone, a traditional building and perhaps the traditional building material. I would like to say that VE, value engineering, becomes AVE, added value engineering. And people have heard me say this before, but I really hold true to this. I think in three general areas. We add value with stone with aesthetics, performance, and heritage. So with all of these words, there are very few stone substitutes, let's call it, that can give you all of these aesthetic advantages. Just like in performance, this is one of the oldest Roman structures that was built for entertainment and is still using for entertainment. But talk about environmental friendly, longevity, life cycle cost, durability, solar reflectance, reclaimed stone, all of these issues that we have an argument to state with using stone on new architectural projects. So I think as you come to the North American market, these are all areas that we're wide open. If you go to any of our conferences, these are often subjects at each one of our conferences. And what Europeans, and in particular Portugal, brings to the table is that added value with stone. The stone monuments, the stone pavements, the stone that the Portuguese have carried around the world and have added to our architectural history, and then are now adding to our current architectural landscape. I think really the respect for the natural material, for the environment, and for the design and the design intent of architects, I think the Portuguese industry has a lot to offer. Of course, we know that the stone industry is truly international. One of the particular areas of the North American in particular is that the United States and Canada and Mexico are one of the largest combined consumers of natural stone in the world. So at this point, whether you're from Portugal or Italy or Morocco, choosing where to sell your stones becomes that your choice, just like in the 16th century. You need to choose your trade route. What is the route? Is it just the nonstop flight or the nonstop ship that goes to the New York port and you stop there? Is North America just New York for you? Or is North America Richmond, Utah, Washington, Los Angeles, Mexico City, Toronto, Quebec? Do you choose a route that others have followed, or do you choose to blaze your own route? Of course, one of our largest challenges while choosing those routes is what has developed during COVID. We all know, and I have 20 containers on the water right now that are waiting in line with many of these ships in various ports around North America. But this will become one of the biggest challenges for Portugal and all international suppliers to the US. As you know, in my professional career since the 80s, the United States has depended heavily on the import of natural stone. We do have quarrying concerns. We have very large quarrying groups in North America, Polycor, Granites of America, Cold Springs Granites, just to name a few. But all of those people also rely on their fabricators from abroad. And that's why fabrication and quarriers, especially in the limestone category. Quarriers have a good advantage coming towards North America and offering their products. So let's give just a quick look at who is the major supplier to the US. And as you can see, Brazil, especially with the incredible granites and gneisses for our countertop market, is still up there. China has really filled a void with about 20% of the market. Italy is still about 20%. These top 5 countries supply close to 86% of the stone that comes to the United States. Portugal is at number 10 with about 1% or $21 million worth of exports to the US. So that just gives you some numbers to go with what I'm talking about. But what are our opportunities? I really think that the biggest opportunity for the Portuguese suppliers is project-based stone supply, such as the projects that I'm showing you. Now, today we don't have lots of time to talk about interiors, so I've chosen to talk more about exteriors. But it's also preparing yourselves for the North American market. You need to become the architects and the engineers' best friend, supplying good information for your particular archetype and good testing information for your stones that you suggest. Keeping in mind there are standards, the ASTM is our standards association. We have our physical mechanical standards. I suggest to anyone really serious about the US market to look into getting their stones tested. We have a new sustainability standard that you might look into for your quarries. If you're a Portuguese quarrier, look into this standard, the NSC 373. And of course, our industry association is the National Stone Institute, Natural Stone Institute. If you're not a member already, you should look into becoming a member and networking with the main stone contractors and importers in North America. I'd like to leave us and conclude our speech today with an architectural example of design I've been talking about for years and years and years, which is transparency and light in the lightness of stone. Lighting and stone design with intention, I think, has been a theme that we've been talking about for years and years and years. And it's wonderful to see in the 1960s was one of the first archetypes that I had studied, using alabaster as the exterior facade. It's basically 1-inch thick panels as a structural panel. Stuck in the steel that basically are the light from the inside when it's nighttime, light from the outside enters when it's daytime. And you can see where I'm going with this in this incredible project, basically coming directly out of the earth in Portugal. Took a long time for the architects to decide which material they wanted, but there's one very happy quarrier that they landed on his particular material. So when Joshua Ramos chose to use this material for the new Perelman Art Center in one of the most prestigious areas in North America, which is, of course, Ground Zero and right next to World Trade Tower, the Perelman Center is, I think, marks a new direction in architecture as well. Thinking about architecture, thinking about facades as decoration once again. It's not, let's read his quotation, it's not so much about the form versus functionality as we all learned. Rather, it's about both doing them a lot and doing them well, and that's how we should be taking our architecture. I think this is a theme for how the Portuguese take their architecture, take their stone supply, and I think there is a wonderful potential for the Portuguese stone suppliers if they choose to involve the stakeholders, if they bring to the table the thinking craftsmen that are located in Portugal. And with the Portuguese design teams, the design professionals in North America, the general contractors in North America, becoming a team to work with the owners and developers to embrace our stone heritage and to choose the right stone for the right job. I see the coming years and decades to be a very favorable ones for the Portuguese stone industry. And once again, I want to thank the ANIAT and all those responsible for today's conference. I hope this was 15 minutes worth of interesting expansion of your minds and thinking about new ways to look at North America. Thank you.